Now, many techies will openly agree that OLED is better than most other panel technologies, but some people still aren't convinced for some reason. So if you are one of those who think that OLED is needlessly expensive or whatever, here are the actual reasons why it is better. First reason might be fairly obvious by now, that OLED pixels offer much darker blacks because they don't have to always turn on. Every OLED pixel is individually controlled, so if that pixel doesn't have to show any image, or if it has to show just a black image, then it can just remain off and thereby save power and actually give you inky blacks. So it automatically pushes the contrast way higher than something like an LCD can do. Second reason has direct correlation with these individual controls. Since all the pixels don't have to always be on, it offers exceptional low light performance, which means an OLED screen is much more natural to look at in a dark room. Since there is no universal backlight behind the panel, the black parts of the panel will blend with the remaining darkness of the room, giving you a fully immersive look. And speaking of backlight, third reason is that OLED almost unanimously offers better viewing angles than any other LCD tech. Since there is no backlight to begin with, there is no weird glare on off-axis viewing, so the viewing angles are much better on an OLED panel. Another interesting point you may like to know is that since there is no white backlight behind the panel, OLED emits much less blue light. And because of their excellent contrast ratio, OLED becomes a much better choice for HDR content. HDR looks way better on OLED because you can play around with shadows and highlights much more than an LCD panel. Another plus point for you gamers out there, OLED panels have really low response times. So the pixel response on an LCD is like maybe 1 millisecond, and that's like an achievement, right? 1 millisecond panel. But on OLED, it can routinely go as low as 0.3, 0.2 milliseconds. There used to be a challenge with high refresh rate content on OLED, but nowadays even that has been fixed. Most mobile phones these days have 120Hz OLED displays. There used to be a problem of image retention or burn-in, where the static pictures or the static elements on the screen would cause a white burn mark, but that has been mostly fixed nowadays because manufacturers know that this is a real issue, so they do a lot of tricks to rectify this. I've made a separate video on my second channel discussing whether OLED burn-in is still an issue in 2022, and for the most part it is not. The only thing that realistically keeps anyone from getting an OLED panel is the cost. You see, LCD has been much widely adopted than OLED because it existed for a lot longer. In some ways, it is much inferior to even older technologies like CRT. In fact, there's a new trend going on of CRT gaming. Linus Tech Tips made a video about CRT gaming versus OLED. It's a pretty interesting thing, you can check it out. But yeah, in some ways, those dome CRT TVs are slightly more advantageous than an average LCD panel. Based on what I've seen, OLED has become a lot more common in handheld devices. I mean, back in the day, only the top flagship phones used to have OLED. But nowadays, even the most budget-centric or mid-range phones have OLED panels. I just hope the same happens with TVs and monitors too, so that everyone gets to enjoy a better technology. There is still a question of the lifespan of OLED because it's prone to a lot more black crush issue and other things. But as with any technology, it takes some time to iron out all the kinks. So the more people use it, the more data companies will have to rectify these things. I was excited about OLED when it first came out, and I'm still excited to see what happens in the future. And hopefully now you have a better understanding of why OLED is such a big deal. I still wish the costs were much more affordable, especially in TVs, because it's almost like a 1.5x price difference. You can get the same TV with the same specs on an LCD panel, but OLED will drive the cost almost 2 times more. I mean, it's crazy and it's not fair. Everyone should get to enjoy really good quality experience in my opinion, but anyway, we'll get there. Meanwhile, you tell me, what are your opinions on OLED? Are you using any OLED devices? Wow, that was a good video. Just as good as this offer from our channel sponsor, keysfan.com. We all have to buy a pro license at some point, whether it's Microsoft Office or Windows, whatever. You name it, they got it. Instead of paying for a full retail license, you can get an OEM license for less than 90% the cost. On top of these existing deals, you get a 62% discount using the coupon code in the description. They have tons of products, so I'm sure you'll get what you're looking for. Be sure to use the coupon codes when you check out.